Hey, YouTubers, Tazman here, bringing you another episode of Taz Teaches Java. And in our last episode, we were working kind of on our deck and our player and making it so it actually dealt cards to our player. And I was thinking we might want to create one more. So this will be the war for the game war. This will be the rules and the card checking and stuff like that. But I don't think we want our main here as I was thinking about it. Because let's say we want to package this and give it to people so they can have it. Well, that means the only game they're going to be able to do is war. We want to have maybe another class, we'll just call it the card game class or something, that will be our main. And that way, maybe we could have something like a menu that says, do you want to play solitaire? Do you want to play war? Do you want to play blackjack? And then they can choose, and then it will either launch war, blackjack, or solitaire based off of their choice. So I'm thinking we want this will be basically the rules or how the game plays. And then our player, these three should be generic between all. There should be nothing in these that lock them down to say war. In player, there shouldn't be anything that says, all right, well, if they have the same card and I have the same card, we play two more cards, one face down, one face up, and see who wins. That should all be in war. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to quickly go in here and why is this? Oh, I think I needed to. I was doing some testing when I was doing that. I didn't really do much though. Let's go ahead and we need to load our other environment. So switch workspace, and it is, I think it's this. I don't remember which one it is now. I think it's this one. Yeah. Let's load that one and see if that's it. Yeah, that's the Taz Teaches. Let me just move this guy, line it up a little better. Okay, so source card game. So that's what I would think we want to do is maybe create one more quick class. We'll call it card game because this could be any game. Card gasm game. Like that. And this is where we're going to have our main. So we're actually going to do tab. We're going to do main in here. And wait, wait, and wait. There we go. And this will, in this case, it's going to create a war object. And the war object is going to create the deck, which creates the card. And the war object will also create the player. So let's go ahead and look at maybe what our war needs to be. Okay, so let's grab out of war. I don't even think we care about any of this, tell you the truth. So our war object is what's going to do generating the deck and generating the player. So that's probably the first thing we're going to want to do is do a private. Let's do final fin. Okay, I can't spell. Never have been able to apparently. Int and DECKS. So this is the number of decks that we want to generate. And it's a final, so we can't change that in game. So if we wanted to have two decks, then we could change that there. I mean, this doesn't lock us down. Like when we create our object for war, we can have it, we can use, we can also have it do our chain constructor or whatever and have it generate another. But we're going to leave it at one right now because that seems plenty. So then we're going to have multiple players. So for our players, I think we're going to do an array. Now this, we don't need to remove a player, don't need to add a player in game. So I'm just going to use a regular array. So private player. Oh, it's going to be an array of player. And it's an array called players. And it's going to be a new array. And because we only have 2 players in war, or in our war anyway, we're just going to have it be PLAY player bracket 2, not 32 bracket. So like that. So that will be for holding our 2 players. And then we're going to need to create our deck, right? So something to hold our deck. private private. Whoops, I can't spell it all. Private deck, and we'll just call this the deck. And we're not going to instantiate it right now. So then in our war object, oh, this is in the wrong one. Oh no, it's not. Package card game. I was like, oh no, I'm in card game. No, we're in the right one. So then we're going to have our constructor, public war. What is it good for? Can't get that song out of my head. Absolutely nothing. And why do I keep hitting the wrong key there? Okay, so here's our constructor. And let's see, so this is going to need to create our deck. So our deck, and then do equals new DE deck, and we will pass it our number of decks, right? So if we actually wanted to do our own custom number here, we don't even need this. We could just have it pass in a number, but we're fine with that. So there's our decks. So that creates our deck. The other thing we need to do is create a player. Now, because we're going to create 2 players, we're going to want to get their name, right? So we're probably going to have this call a function called create player, because it's going to do 2 of them. We don't want to necessarily do it here, but this is going to be a private thing. So we're going to have a create player, maybe create players. And the other thing we're going to want to do is deal our cards out to the player, which once again will be another big old loop to deal out half the cards to each player. So deal cards maybe. And we don't need to pass it anything. So this is pretty much our constructor. But now, of course, we're going to have something to create our players. So let's go ahead and go here and do private, because we don't want anyone outside of this class to be able to call it. So private, it's not going to return anything. Can I do this? No. Bummer. Create PLAYERS players. It doesn't take anything and it's not returning anything. So I'm thinking for testing purposes, we're going to have 2 set players that will always be there. But we want to have in place, which means we're probably going to want to do a private scanner so that we can get input from the user. SC equals new SCANN scanner and SYSTM dot in. So like I said, for testing purposes, we don't want to have to enter in player names every single time we're playing while we're testing. We just want it to have the player names. We know that's going to work. So we're going to say PLAYERS players, and we're going to do element 0 for player 1 equals new player, and let's just do Tasman T4zzM4NN. Like a show. Whoops. And do that. So that should do that, right? New. Why are you all red? Let's mouse over to see if it tells us what I miss. Okay, well that's not right. the constructor in player string is undefined. I thought we set this up so it could have a player private. Oh, we don't even have a constructor in here, do we? So let's go ahead and create a quick constructor, PBLIC, public, PLAY player, nothing to do. And we're going to say, oh, whoops, this is expecting a string. So let's do str string and name maybe. I'm going to get rid of this F name because I don't care if it's first name. It's just the player's name. And then we're going to say this dot name equals name. And that should make everything happy because now we're going to pass into here a player. Okay, then let's just copy this and modify it because I'm kind of a slow typer and misspelling typer. So we're going to say player 1, which is actually player 2. But remember, arrays start with element 0 and usually, well, they end with whatever, but they start with 0. So we always want to keep track of that. And maybe this one will do dr dirty fam, my daughter. And go ahead and do that and that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the part that when we're not testing, when we're actually doing the game, we want it to ask for the player's name. So we're going to create a quick little loop here, and we're going to say int I. We'll comment this guy out because we don't want it doing this every time. So equals 0 because we start with element 0 in arrays, and we're going to say I is less than PLAYERS players dot length. So that's the full length of the array. So that's going to return 2, right? And then I plus and that. So then what we need to do is do an S out to, oops, not like that. S out control space and get rid of the LN. And we're going to say, what is the name of, oops, of player. And now remember, this is going to be 0 if we do I. So we want to adjust for that, and we want to say plus and then do parentheses, and we're going to do I plus 1. And then let's go ahead and do this, and then maybe just throw in a question mark so they can enter it. And I think that's good. So this will say, what is the name of? So when it's 0, it'll say player 1 with a question mark. And because we have just a print and not a print ln, it's going to stay on the same line. So now we're going to say PLAYERS players bracket I equals new PLAYE player, oops, player, and for the name it will be the sc.nextLine. And there we go. So if we didn't have this right here, when we launch this, this will ask us 2 times. It'll say, what is the name player 1? You put it in. What is the name player 2? You put it in. But we don't want to have to do that every single time we test because it's kind of a pain. So we're going to go ahead and comment that out so we don't have to worry about it. So now whenever the game starts and it creates a player, it's automatically going to assign player 1 as Tazman, player 2 as Derby Fan. So the next thing we want to do is create our deal cards. Now we already have a deal cards in our deck. Remember, we have deal A cards. So this is going to deal A card, but remember it does some pretty complex stuff because it takes it from our card deck, our main cards, and it copies it into in play, and then it's going to return the same card that it put in play out to the user. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to have it deal cards out to our players. Now if you think about it, in games where you play, The easy way to do this would be simply we've shuffled the deck and we take half of it, we give half to one player, half to the other player. However, that is not considered fair because you might have ideas of some of the cards. When you're shuffling, you kind of see the cards that might be in the lower half of the deck, so you can kind of stack the deck. So we want to keep this kind of as realistic to a card game as we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually deal one card to player 1, one card to player 2, one card to player 1, one card to player 2, and we're going to do that until the entire deck is used up. So the way we're going to do that, we could do it a very complex way, but I think we don't want to do it a complex way. So we're going to create a private, and we have to spell that right again, PRI, private, and we were going to do no return on this, a private void, and this was called deal cards. So now, like I said, the majority of this guy, the hard part of actually dealing the card, changing the temp and everything, is written in deck. But this is going to deal cards out to each individual player. So what we want to do is, first, we're going to want to keep track of which player we're giving, because we want to first give it to player 0, then player 1, then player 0, then player 1. So an easy way of doing this is to start with something to keep track of what the current player is. So we're going to say int current player, player, and we're going to assign this to 0, because when you're dealing, you deal to player 1 first, and then you go player 2, and so on and so forth. Then what we're going to want to do is have a quick little loop of some sort. Now, we could do this with a with a for loop, but then we'd have to specify how many cards there are in total. So we're going to actually do it with a while loop, because we don't necessarily know. I mean, right now we know because it's a single deck, it's going to be 52 cards, but we don't need code to try and do a count like that. We're just going to have it do it until the deck is empty. So let's go ahead and say while, and we've created our deck object, which now gives us access to all our functions and stuff in our deck. So we're going to say, we're going to say while, let's say deck dot, and do we have a card count? Card count. I don't see one. So we're definitely going to want something that is a card count that lets us return how many cards. Now that's going to be a really easy one to write. All we have to do is come into here and maybe like right after our constructor, we'll go ahead and do a public public. Now if we didn't have these private, we could easily access our cards, right? But we don't want to do that because that's bad practice. So we're going to say we're going to return an integer, and we're going to call this card count, right? We're not expecting anything. So now we're just going to simply return. We're going to return, and we just want to do cards dot size. So this will return however big our array is of cards. So now in here, in our war, where we're doing deck dot, and now you can see we have our card count. So this is going to check how many cards there are in the deck each time, and if that hits 0, because while there is cards, it's going to continue. So now what we want to do is deal out a card to a player, and then so we're going to deal a card out to a player, and then we're going to swap which player is player 1. And we're going to do that with the what is it called? The Tertiary Operator? Tertiary Operator? I can't remember what it's called, but something like that. It's the if statement that you can put on one line. So let's go ahead and continue. So first we're going to do players. So we want players, and the player will be whichever is not I. Why am I thinking I? I want this to be current player. Current play player, right? And we want to, oops, for our current player, we want to go ahead and add a card. Now, we don't have an add a card, do we? No. So now we need to come in here. And we need to find a player. We want to add a card. And that's going to be pretty easy to do as well. So we're in player. Let's do it before the overrides. So our draw card. What was our draw card? Oh, that's if you're drawing a card from the I'm just gonna add a, actually let's do this. I'm gonna put it maybe right after our constructor because this is kind of a getter setter type thing. So let's go ahead and call public. This is going to receive something because we're going to get our card from our other guy. So we want to say add card public. We're not returning anything. And this is going to be called add card. So this will add a card to our hand, and it's going to expect us to get a card. And we'll just call it card. Why not? And then let's see. So this will simply be adding a card to our hand. So we would just say then hand dot add and card. This, when we're adding this card, when we're drawing a card, we're actually adding in we're creating a new card into our hand. This kind of doing the same. This might actually end up being irrelevant with the way we're setting it up now. So we're just adding a card like that. Now we can come back to our war, and we can say add card, and we're adding let's see, so we would want to do, so we're adding a card, and then this would be our deck deal card, I think. D-E-C-K deck. Oops, I'm in the wrong spot. D-E-C-K dot deal card, because it's going to deal a single card out to our player. The first one generates a card and gets the values and everything like it that we were showing you. So that's our why you read updates are available. We'll get that later. So now once we've dealt a card out to our player, we want to swap out and deal to our next player, right? So to do that, we would want to do our whatchamacallit. So we want to change current player, C-U-R-R-E-N-T, our tertiary or ternary thing. And if you remember how you do this, it's just basically your whole if statement and the possible results all on one line. So we're going to change current player. So we want to check what current player currently is. Current player equals 0. So if it equals 0, then what we want to do is put our question mark here. I can't remember if you can have a space there or not. We'll see. So if it is a 0, then we're going to switch it to 1. If it's not a 0, then we're going to switch it to 0. And that should do that. I think that looks weird with the question mark out there. So there we go. This is simply going to alternate between one or the other. Why are you red? Type mismatch, cannot convert int to Boolean. Oh, yeah, I forgot. While it is greater than 0. Yeah. Okay, so now we have something that will deal out cards to our players. It'll do 1 to 1, 1 to the other, 1 to 1, 1 to the other, until the cards are all gone. So that is pretty good. And that pretty much takes care of our constructor there. So let's go look at our actual card game. I want to reorder these because I have them usually. So give me a card real quick just in case we have to go in there. There we go. Card, deck, player, war. Card, deck, player, war. And then our actual. So let's go look at this guy real quick. So to create a new guy, what we would do is what would we want to do here? So this is basically, we're going to have a scanner in here too, because we're going to have, no, actually I don't think we need a scanner in here. Let's just go ahead and start. What do we want to do? Well, first of all, we have to create a war object, right? And say war and equals new war. So there's our war object. And then this is where we would call all our different other things. Damn, we're out of time already. Maybe let's save this real quick. So we're creating a war object. This might be an okay stopping point right here, because I want to kind of think, and this is going to have some things about maybe checking who won by who. So for those of you who don't know how war works, or if you've never played war, basically what you do is you deal out half the deck to each person. So out of 52 cards, each person gets 26. You don't look at your cards, but you flip one over at the same time as the other person. If your card is higher than their card, suit not mattering, then you take 2 cards, put them on the bottom of your deck. If the other player wins, then they take those 2 cards, put them on the bottom of their deck. If the card value is the same, like a king and a king, then what you do is you deal your top card on top of that card face down so you don't see it. You take another card and you flip it over just like a regular war, and you choose then who has the highest card. So now if player 1 wins, they get the 3 cards that is now on the pile there from player 2, and they get their 3 cards, and they take those and they put them all on under their deck. So they don't get a look at what the card that was upside down is, but basically you keep doing that until one of the players hits 0, so they don't have any cards left. We might not do all the way to 0. We might say if you get down to, say, 2 to 3 cards. In other words, we'd have to throw in a lot more math to check that, oh, can I actually do a war, and stuff like that. But we'll think about it, because we're not actually trying to create a game. We're just trying to give you an example of the structure of the game and how to set things up. So whether this is a full, and war wouldn't be a very fun one to do anyway, because you could have the computer do the entire thing. You know, it's just flipping a card, oh, you win. Flipping a card, you win. And if you did that in a for loop, it would do, you know, like 1,000 turns in just a few seconds. So, like I said, this isn't meant to be a game that you're going to be, oh, I got to go play war or anything like that. It's more to get you the idea of using multiple classes, using them together, and making the structure of a game. The actual game is more or less irrelevant. I just wanted to do it to let you see, yes, all this stuff works together. So I think this is actually a pretty good stopping point, and we're basically at 30 minutes. So I think we're going to call it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you're learning something and that you're enjoying these videos. As always, feel free to comment. Let me know if I'm doing something that's not the most efficient way. Because like I've said, when you're doing this on the fly and you're just kind of pulling stuff out of your head as you're going, it's really easy to miss things or, you know, not do something that seems more efficient or obvious than someone else might do. So I'm more than happy to take your guys' comments and, you know, go, oh yeah, that would be better. Or maybe, no, I wanted to do it that way for this reason. I can tell you why. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Oh, my throat is dry. But anyway, hopefully, like I said, you did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and my other channels. Lots of fun stuff. I have 3 channels in all. And that's it. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.